Right now, there are over 50 armed conflicts worldwide. Soldiers are being deployed, orders are being given, and somewhere in a tent or barracks, a young sergeant is asking a question that every leader should ask. Am I responsible for this? Today, I want to answer that question, not just for soldiers, but for you and every other leader. In the Army, I was taught a principle called just war theory. It's over 1,500 years old, but it's as relevant today as it was when Augustine first wrote it. It's this: you are accountable for how you fight. You are not accountable for whether the war is just in and of itself. There are two Latin terms that Augustine coined with this, and they are, the first one is just ad bellum. The right to war. That's the president's call, that's the UN Security Council's call, that's whatever government leader is involved, that's their call. The second term is called just and bello. That's the right conduct in war. That's the soldier's call. That's every trigger pull. That's every order that is being followed and executed. A soldier can be deployed to an illegal war and still behave legally in his conduct. They can refuse an unlawful order, like targeting civilians, while having to audit the geopolitical justification for being there in the first place. So why? Because moral responsibility is bounded by authority. You are accountable for what you can control. So now let's bring this into corporate America. Let's now bring this into the boardroom. Let's say you're a senior vice president, or some leader within an organization, and your CEO just announced a strategic pivot. Maybe it's a merger you disagree with. Maybe it's a layoff you think that is premature. Maybe it's a market that you believe is unethical. Here's the question. Are you responsible for that decision? No, you're not. You didn't make it. You don't have the authority to reverse it. And if you spend your energy relitigating it, you're going to paralyze yourself and your team. So, what are you responsible for? Let's talk about that. You're responsible for how you communicate it with your people, whether you execute the strategy with any integrity, whether you protect your team from collateral damage as you're going through the process, and whether you refuse if the order eventually crosses a moral or legal line. You're responsible for that. That is what it means to be just and bello for leaders inside of organizations. You don't own the strategy, but you do own the execution. Scripture gives us a similar framework to think through. For example, in Romans 13:1, it says, let every person be subject to the governing authorities. In contrast, Acts 5:29 says, we must obey God rather than men. So which is it? In this context, as with Scripture, it's both. You have to obey the authority until it commands you to sin. You execute the mission unless the mission requires you to violate your conscience. The soldier in the unjust war can still fight justly. The executive, the leader that's operating in a flawed strategy can still lead with integrity. Your conscience is protected by limiting your moral liability to what you can directly control. That's not permission to avoid the hard calls, of course. It's clarity on which calls are yours to make. So now, this is where I really need you to dig in and get honest with yourself. Right now, in your role, in the work that you do day in and day out, are you carrying accountability that doesn't belong to you? Are you losing sleep over a leader's decision that you can't change? Are you second guessing the CEO or some other leader in the organization's directive that you just don't have the authority to rule? If that's you, I need you to stop it. Stop it right now. That is a war that's not your war to justify. Your war is how you fight it. Now, let's talk about the flip side of that coin, of course. Are you avoiding accountability that does actually belong to you? Are you blaming the strategy for your team's poor execution? Are you hiding behind, I'm just following orders, when you know the order is wrong? If that's you, then that's on you as well. That's your issue, because just and bello doesn't mean blind obedience. It means you have moral agency within your span of control. So let me leave you with this. The wars in the world right now, all the things that are happening in the world right now, that's not necessarily your responsibility unless it's your job and it's in that space. But the war inside your organization, the things that you're working on, the one where you lead people, make decisions, and set the tone, that is your responsibility. That one is yours to fight. You're not responsible for whether or not the war is just. You are responsible for whether or not you are. So, I'm Lawrence Price, the 3C coach. We really are invested in building leaders that are worth following. I hope that you found some value in a couple of nuggets in this video today. Take care. Thank you.